Hi everyone, it is May the 12th. The month is going by pretty quick. Haven't done anything for about a week here, so I wanted to get back and just say hi and put something up to you. It's been a very busy week at the farm. We have a lot of, we'll call them challenges going on here right now on many levels, and along with, of course, all the normal work of wood cutting and planting and watering and etc. But we have um, some very quite serious issues that are on the table right now, and so it's taking a lot of my time and energy. So there hasn't been too much for you guys, but there is now. So you might notice I'm a bit tired these days, or it's been taking a lot out of me actually. Um, but I'm going to be talking to you today about something you might want to take a little break with mentally, um, and that is this book, The Vertical Plane by Ken Webster. It's a book I had heard about 20 years ago or so. The book was written, I think, in 1989, and I'd heard about it, but it was almost impossible to get then. There had only been like one publishing of it, and even trying to get it through an interlibrary loan was almost impossible because there were only like one or two copies anywhere that you could even try to track down. A thread on Above Top Secret on the book came out about 2016 maybe, and re-perked my interest in the book, and I read more on it, and then finally a reprint because of that. I think because of that thread and the contacts that happened from that thread on Above Top Secret, this particular version with came out in edition came out in 2018. So it's now actually, you can buy the book quite easily now, and it used to cost you hundreds of dollars to get a copy. Now you can get one for the regular price. Why am I bringing it up to you? Well, it's a very strange story, and it's hard to know if it's true or not, or how true or not it is. If I had to nutshell it into like a couple of sentences, it's that the author of this book, Ken Webster, and his then girlfriend at the time, Debbie, claimed to be having first poltergeist activity in their house. Very strange experiences at their house in where was it in England? In not Chester, England. Anyway, they're at their at their location in England, their farmhouse, Dawdleston. And soon after, he brought one of the early computers to his home. The kind with a floppy disk, and nothing could be saved on the computer. It always had to go to disk, like a real early version of it. And he claimed to start receiving messages on this disk being left for him, which from someone who seemed to be living in the 1400s, who was living in the same space, or living in a cottage on that particular location, and they were somehow crossing time and having these conversations. Now, of course, this fellow, who went through many different names until they finally, I think, got his name to be Thomas. I think he was Lucas at the beginning. Was of course writing in very distinct language. Mein Freund, we may sayeth Deseridus, mein goodly friend, I meaneth I han only meet with him there is at Cambridge, I known more of it. So they have all the original their correspondence with him, this supposed being's correspondence back, and then a more modern translation to read through the language. But they wanted to include some of the language to make sure the original document that could be seen. And there's a lot of people, of course, who are claiming this to be a hoax, claiming this to be that he's making this up, which could be true. No one could actually prove a hoax. They even brought people from various psychic societies and ghost hunting societies to try to figure out how this was being done, and no one, in a sense, could figure out the mechanism then of the hoax being done. But I'm bringing it up for more than that. There's more reasons I want to talk to you about this and get you potentially interested in the story. There's also supposedly another being. The being is labeled as, I think it's 2109, which they believe to be somebody from the future. It could be some sort of entity, some sort of some sort of demonic being, some sort of alien, who knows, that's also seems to be interacting in this and claims that what's going on is a very special experiment. That was very clear that this thing was claiming to be an experiment. And you also get this time lapse because there would also be times letters supposedly written by this Lucas left in the house. So as if items could be written by this one person hundreds of years ago and then show up in the modern world. Photographs from the modern world could be sent back, you might say, to Lucas. This Deb woman claimed to have gone, like, altered time and had conversations with him. So why am I bringing this up? A couple of reasons. One, of course, so many of you are digging into, in your own way, the historical record of our world. And the huge issue with anything historical is we can't know anything for sure because, well, we don't have photographs, we don't have video footage, we don't have anything, right? You can't prove when there was a Battle of Waterloo. I mean, like, Battle of Waterloo is a great one because we don't have any bodies, right? You have, whatever, 50,000 supposed dead soldiers, but we got no dead bodies. That's always a great one. Yeah, anyway, so things like that. So you can't even prove that it happened. And even if there was one, you can't prove whatever happened or not because we don't even have any footage whatsoever of anything. No photographs, no nothing. And so it's like a mystery. But a book like this, or a book like, what is the name of that book? It was, is it on my shelf over there? It's, I'm having to look across the room to see if I can see the name of the book. I can't see it off the top of my head. I'll put it in the link below. It's a book of like psychic archaeologists that was put out in the 1970s. Professors who were using psychics at historical sites to give them information that tended later on to turn out to be quite accurate. When they would follow and he'd say, you need to dig here, you're going to find this and this. This happened over here. If you dig here, you'll find that. And they tended to be correct every time they made their suggestions. So it's an entire book on that subject. Schwartz, I think, was the author. Schwartz. Anyway, I don't want to waste your time with this. I'll put it in the description below. Anyway, the point is that, the book is found by my wife. The Secret Vaults of Time, yeah. That's another one. The Secret Vaults of Time. I put it in front of the camera. Secret Vaults of Time, and the author is Stephen Schwartz. A little bit hard to find. It might be a bit expensive, but not all the book was great, but some of it was very, very interesting into how these people were getting glimpses of the past. But what's weird is, of course, if there was a question and answer, the professor, the historian who was working with them, wasn't trying to get they weren't trying to get real distinct answers. They just almost wanted them to provide them similar information that fit their box already. So whether they gave information outside the box that said, yeah, I'm seeing this information on this, this, and this, and whatever you believe about history is wrong, it's really this, and they just pushed it aside, or they made sure never to ask questions or go in areas where things were actually dug up. But the point being and why I'll get back to the vertical plane in a moment, is this idea that, maybe we can find out what's going on at the World's Fairs. We just need enough, we need a different way of being able to access that time frame, and rather than study photographs and read books and try to piece something together, we have to actually find a way to bridge time ourselves, to get our own consciousness, our own viewing at that time, and do it in such a way that we don't think we're hallucinating, we don't think we're making things up, we don't think we're playing games with ourselves, where we have a way of checking the truthfulness in our seeing. So to the vertical plane, because this entire book, which I highly recommend reading, it is so many layers. They added a UFO hunter, Gary Rowe, I think was his name. He got involved with all of this stuff. There was a highly well knowledgeable person on 14th, 15th century English that tried to claim that the language being used was outstandingly perfect. Others, of course, scholars tried to come in and say that the language was not perfect. That's not the way they would speak in the 14th and 15th century. So it leads to there's also the other side of it. Maybe this is a real two things may have occurred here that I want you to think about. The first is that as you read this book, and I don't want to put too many expectations on you if you choose to read it. I'm wondering if if they really did this, if this really happened, if a person from the 14th or 15th century, whatever it is, was having conversations with Ken Webster, I wonder if they're an alchemist. Because I look through this book and I look through the way it's been written, the way things are being presented, and I see alchemic symbolism constantly through the book. And there are weird at times, like things like chapter headings, like what's just so that you can see it if you have the book yourself. So we're chapter 20, chapter 21, chapter 22, and then all of a sudden it's chapter 7. Just so you can see it yourself. Chapter 23 doesn't exist, which would be 5. So like just so we can see it. There's chapter 21. Then we skip ahead and we have chapter 22. And then all of a sudden we have chapter 7. And certainly if that's meant to be a mistake, and the book follows correctly, it's not like that's the real chapter 7 that's been put in the wrong place. It follows correctly in the presentation of the story, and there is a real chapter 7. If I turn back, there is an actual chapter 7, so that's not like it's been chapter 7 by accident was moved somewhere else. This is chapter 23 that they've labeled a 7, which of course is strange because chapter 23 numerically would be 5, right? That would be a 5 number. But the book starts the chapter starts by listing 25 June, and then it gives some detail. And so, for example, I've read this book a number of times because I think there's so many clues in it as well, so many knowledge clues in it. And I've read this chapter a few times knowing that this is a really important chapter, and I see a ton of alchemic symbolism just in this chapter. So it is possible the character known as Lucas/Thomas was an alchemist who lived in this house and somehow from the alchemic process made this link through time. If you recall, if you know the story of John Dee, the famous alchemist/occultist of English fame, living sort of in this time, he claimed as well through a special mirror, a special what he called a mirror or a looking glass or something, that he was contacting a being in the future. I don't remember the name Dee used for the being that he claimed that he was talking to. So if this is real, is Ken Webster talking to John Dee, actually, not this character here, and then he's making up some names a little bit just to hide who he's really having conversations with. And as I understand, there's only a part of the conversations that are in this book, so a huge number of conversations were omitted. They say just because, it would just make the book too long, or maybe it's because certain pieces of that correspondence they didn't want to put out in a book. They didn't want others to know what they were really talking about. The third option, of course, is that this is just a hoax, that Ken Webster wanted to write a novel, write a really interesting story, a real kind of mystery thriller that would get people excited and interested and buy his book and whatnot. And if he did that, he has studied alchemy on a pretty high level. That's guaranteed, because you can't be slipping in the various symbolism in this book by accident. Somebody involved in the writing process, then, if the story is not somewhat accurate, is playing an alchemic game here and is putting alchemic information in the book. So either way, if the book is a complete hoax, then it's certainly an alchemic hoax that's trying to present pieces of information. We know that certain elements of it have to be real because the people who are other people outside of the author who were involved in the story have certainly verified what's going on. That like Gary Rowe guy, he was really involved. He was really going on. The stuff in the book that's theirs, Gary Rowe claims is pretty close to what was there. There's lots of stuff that didn't go in the book. There's lots of stuff that both sides asked not to write about, and even now Gary still seems a bit spooked out by the whole experience. He seems, and this is supposed to have been a pretty well-known UFO researcher, so would have dealt with a lot of stuff in his life, and this experience kind of, I think, still has him spooked. A few people from that above top secret thread eventually contacted him and tried to have some detail with him. I think one of the people of that thread even tried certain exercises to reach this 2109 character and believe that they did, and believe that this was a real being, sort of non-physical being, and they believe they contacted it and believe they started having similar interactions with this being as it was talking about in the book. But if we wind this all back beyond a really interesting mystery story that you might want to look at and think about for yourself, it's this idea that, okay, if it's not a hoax, if this really happened for some reason, and some bizarre reason happened through these old computers, okay, it means that there is a potential doorway into the past. As we know, time is relative, and time is there's no real past and future. Time is things that are happening simultaneously, so it's accessible. The question is how to access it, and how to access it in such a way. I mean, I've known some what you call psychics, right? And they always claim to know the past and tell you about this and tell you about that and tell you about what Cleopatra was like or whatever. And you can just from the language and just the way they're talking, you know, they're just making it up. They might believe it themselves, but they're just in fantasy mode in their mind. But that doesn't mean I don't honestly I do honestly believe that there also are people that were like in the secret vaults of time in this book that somehow is genuine. They have the ability to cross over into periods of the past. And so the whole point of bringing this 20-minute video to you is not only the interest of looking into it, but the way of thinking. Because I said we should stop our study of history, and some people got upset about that. Actually, there was an interview that was on a few weeks ago with some people almost like questioning my honesty or something. Like, you know, how could I possibly not be studying history anymore at the time of this Bloomberg article that's come out that's kind of attacking alternative history researchers, which is I can't believe it's taken this long, you know. But obviously, this research has reached a point where the people who run things are now seeing it's dangerous that the historical narrative is now has been questioned so well and so strongly for a while that they have to try to respond and make the people who do it, you know, look crazy somehow. That anyone who doesn't believe the narrative is crazy. And so channels like this will start coming down now very soon. That's like the tipping point of saying the same thing of anyone who was a Donald Trump supporter. Well, now crazy will be anyone who thinks there were, you know, old buildings at World Fairs, and those kind of people those channels should come down. But the point being, by mentioning, and of course, so they question my integrity. That's the word. Question my integrity for not still bashing my head against the wall to study history. Not that I might be on a farm that's causing me a tremendous amount of work and headaches and challenges, and in fact might even not be able to be living at much longer. I may for all I know, might be homeless rather soon. Actually, I might be not being able to live here anymore. And it's not that I may have other uses of a time of spiritual warfare that my time is maybe felt to be a little more important. No, there must be something wrong with me for not still doing what they're doing, and questioning my integrity and questioning if I don't know if I'm some kind of government agent even or something. I think insinuating in such a way that, you know, I might just be here to fool everybody. Yeah, that's anyway. It's laughable, to be quite honest with you, and so it just makes me laugh actually, and I don't have time for it. But the whole point of the business, as you probably understand if you're still here watching the channel, is that continuing for me in the study of history in the manner I've been studying it and everyone else has been studying it has a limit to how far you can go and to what you can actually know from that way. That's not going to cut it anymore. If you're going to actually work in this field, then you've got to work to kind of know something, for like know it, not just have a speculation, not just have a theory, not just have an idea. I mean, know, be able to prove, know. And this book, Vertical Plane, might be a touching point to say that that type of thing is possible. It might be impossible to share with anyone else because no one will believe you, but you might be able to tap into it and know it. Or like the same thing with the secret vaults of time people. with the people involved in that there may be ways of truly tapping into the past and getting a really clear picture of whatever it is we want to know. Like, wouldn't it be great to, yeah, we really want to know what happened to the in 1904 St. Louis World's Fair. Wouldn't it be great to be able to see it in front of your face like a movie going on, and be able to really dig yourself into it? And what about the people who are able to like interact, claim they can interact with the past, claim they can go into the movie and interact with other characters there, the other people there, find out what's really going on, what they were really doing and thinking. So I'm presenting that to you as a really unique possibility that maybe some of us can figure out a way to do that. And if so, and I know they have this thing called remote viewing or something. Yeah, I don't trust that, actually. I don't doubt that it might be able to work a bit for the present, but generally when I've seen anything people try to do remote viewing on the past, generally it just turns out to be whatever you'd find in a history book. You know, if a history book says X, that's what the remote viewer shows up. It's almost like if they're tapping into anything, they're just tapping into the standard historical narrative of right now. Because, yeah, again, if you're going into the past, it should be so different to what the standard narrative says, no matter what. Like if you go back in time to, I don't know, like anything, if you go back in time to the Renaissance in Florence, let's say the Renaissance is real and the time frame is real, some stuff really happened there, whatever history tells you about it, if you could actually go back and see that and experience it, it's going to be really, really different. Like, for sure, it's going to be really, really different than what the history books try to tell you what was like. Guaranteed. Has to be. And so if anyone just says, oh yeah, I went back there and came back with the exact same thing you find in your history book, I'm going to throw that in the garbage, because I know the narrative is a lie. We already know the narrative. But that's one thing by doing all this history work that is useful up to this point, is to see the historical narrative is a lie. So now if you're going to go to a deeper channel and tap into what, say, like the vertical happened in the vertical plane, well, if what's going to come back to you is the standard historical narrative, you know it's lying to you. It's bullshit. I'm not going to listen to that. But if something starts coming out that's like a totally on the other page, it's like completely somewhere else, and then can potentially, you could see how the standard narrative could be manipulated from it. Okay, now maybe we got something here. Maybe we've really hit it. So that's the only reason I kind of presented this 20-ish minute video to you, is to get you thinking, is there a way to go through this? Is there a way to study history in a different way, study alternative history in a way that actually gives us answers rather than more theories? That's all. And again, maybe you might want to read The Vertical Plane. Just as a novel, if you just want to treat it as a potential novel, it's really interesting. And yeah, for those of you who may have read it, I'm guessing some people who watch the channel probably have read it. Share it. Let me hear what you have to think after going through the book, and especially if you've got some alchemic background in you. Did you also find a lot of alchemy in that book, a lot of alchemic references that either indicate they're talking to an alchemist, they're talking to John Dee, or the people writing it were alchemists and they were, you might say, playing a little game writing the book? On that note, I will, figuring out history, I'll finish up my Holy Grail version with you sometime this weekend. It still takes me a while to do it, but there's some holidays out here now in Norway, so we get a little bit of time where you're supposed to work less. So I'll have some extra time to finish up part 2 of the Holy Grail. It'll probably be an hour-long video. It's probably not going to be short. It's probably going to be an hour, maybe even longer, to finish the whole thing and go into the detail that we have to go into on what's really being presented. So expect that like Sunday, Monday-ish, we'll get that one out, and then we'll start to see where we venture from there. So thanks, guys. I'll be looking forward to your comments if you've read The Vertical Plane and what you have to think about it. Cheers.